Y'all ready for this?
What's up, Bodybuilding.com listeners? My name is Danielle Bitts, and welcome back to the BBCom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Peter Nelson. Pete is the founder of SISU Lifestyle, an Ohio-based brand whose purpose is to make wellness premium and simple by fostering connection and health in every household through sauna and plunge. Pete has been a fitness enthusiast his whole life. He was a high school basketball standout who ended up pivoting to CrossFit, weightlifting, and ultra running during college. He's ran 27 ultra marathons and won the inaugural Antarctica 50K Ultra Marathon in March 2024. Pete, his wife Paige, and their 2 children currently reside in Northeast Ohio, where Cisu products are manufactured. Pete is passionate about giving back to veterans and individuals who have been affected by cancer. Pete founded the annual Hell on Hogsback Endurance Race Series in 2023. All proceeds from the event go to an individual or family diagnosed with cancer in need of funds for medical care. Through the element of hot and cold therapy, Pete believes we can not only live healthier lives, but more intentional and longer lives. Pete, welcome to the BBCom podcast.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me. What an opportunity, and I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, likewise, Pete. Thanks for stopping by today. I'm excited about today's topic. I'm passionate and fired up about today's topic. Everybody, we're talking about hot therapy, sauna therapy, contrast therapy, all of the therapies today, and really what heat can do for us on a physiological and psychological level. So number one today, Pete, I want to talk about building Cisu. So you're the founder of Sisu Saunas, handcrafted cedar saunas made in Ohio. Talk a little bit about the origin story, how this wasn't an industry, a new industry for you, but a newfound mythology that you marketed sauna therapy to a post-pandemic world.
Absolutely. So I got, in my prior professional career, I was a personal trainer. And through the process of being a personal trainer, then managing a gym, and then owning the gym, we found that sauna would be a great recovery modality for our athletes. And so we naturally purchased a sauna. We actually put it at our own home. And through that buying process, we found out that in Ohio, there was no dealer or wholesaler for this specific manufacturer that we bought from. And this manufacturer, which is a phenomenal manufacturer, specifically they're in like the late 2010s and upwards into that 2020, 2021, they were known as the most premier and premium sauna manufacturer in North America. So we ended up getting the rights to become a wholesaler of that sauna manufacturer, and through that process we ended up becoming the authority in Ohio for anybody that would want to buy a sauna through that manufacturer. They would have to go through us. So we got to learn the sauna business, and in that sauna business, specifically in that first year, we would probably have 1 to 2 sales maybe every other month, and we got to understand what people wanted in sauna, what people didn't want in sauna, the temperature ranges, and then COVID hit, and just like any business, we had to pivot. And in that time of COVID, we ended up hitting a period where there was 12 straight months without a single sauna sale. And it became so alarming because as a side hustle, yes, you were putting time into it. But as we were doing like a time audit, we're like, this probably is not the right move for us at this juncture. So we ended up deciding actually to dissolve the dealership about 2 years into that portion of what Cisu was at the time. And then there was a morning where my business partner and I, Nick Daddis, we were doing an early morning trail run, and we kind of both looked at each other like, we should dissolve this. And then 10 minutes later, after making that decision, we're like, wait a second, what is the problem here at hand? And we kind of went through the whole list, and we said, well, the lead times are too long. There was decreases in quality of craftsmanship. There's too many sauna companies out there that are pulling, product from Asia and different countries. Nothing's U.S. sourced, U.S. made. The heaters aren't right, and it wasn't something that was very marketable. And so we started going down the line of, all right, hypothetical solutions. What should we do? And we started creating solutions to those problems at a very high level. And by the end of that run, the decision was made that we were going to pivot into manufacturing ourselves. So it was August of 2022 that we really got our manufacturing off the ground. We pivoted the business from being a wholesaler of another manufacturer to being our own manufacturer, where we have a 65,000 square foot facility in Northeast Ohio in Amish country, where our Amish craftsmen handcraft and hand select every single sauna. And so all of our wood comes from Idaho. We ship it into Ohio, into Burton, Ohio, where We have Western Red Cedar. It's milled on site. It's hand selected, handcrafted, and we ship within 4 weeks. It features very, very simple options. So when somebody goes to a sauna website and they want to purchase a sauna, we were really flustered with how many different options you needed or were to the customer's disposal. And the other thing too is that you had to be super well educated to understand, like, all right, if I'm going to invest $10,000 into a sauna, I want to be not only as educated, but I want to be as informed as possible. We wanted to eliminate that completely. So what we did is we started looking at what SKUs people wanted, not just that from like the shape, but also the size, the heater, bucket, ladle, the whole thing. It needs to all be part of this one package. The only option that we give our consumers is whether or not it's going to be indoor or outdoor, which is the difference of a roof kit or non-roof kit. And that's allowed us to be able to scale. So we're in month 21 or so, and it's far exceeded our expectations, and it's been so fun. And now we're sitting here and being able to talk about sauna therapy.
What does Cisu mean, Pete?
Yeah, so Cisu is actually a Finnish concept, and there's no perfect translation to the English language. And Cisu means perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. And believe it or not, there was actually a John Wick-esque movie that just came out about a year ago called Cisu, and it's about this man who does not speak a single word the entire movie, but the guy just doesn't die. And he displays this grit and this perseverance to be able to get through super difficult situations. And that's such a great way to be able to describe Cisu, because it's this ultimate level of perseverance where if you think about like a challenging situation, there comes a point where you want to give up and you want to quit. And then Cisu begins, right? So it's like that next level of determination for you to be able to get through really, really difficult experiences and difficult challenges that life's presenting to you.
That's a great story behind the brand. I want to ask you the question up front. Why saunas? Why sauna therapy for you specifically? And, what makes you so passionate about it, where you chase down this dream of starting, a global brand or, a domestic brand right now with Cisu?
For sure. If you would have asked me 5 years ago that sauna was going to be my, lifeline for how I was going to support my family, I would have laughed at you. But it was through the experience of sitting in the sauna with my wife and then having my friends over and then seeing the research start to come out starting in 2018, 2019. And it just became not only what people are viewing as a trend in the United States right now, it actually, to me, is something that is here to stick. And so what I viewed was like, this is an opportunity for us to be able to start getting people to foster connection with themselves more and the people that are in the sauna, but actually start to build tangible health. And sauna in itself is an exercise mimetic. It's not a substitute for exercise, but it's a way for us to be able to build better relationships. It's a way for us to be able to expedite recovery. It's a great way for us to be able to get the cardiovascular effects of zone 2 training when I'm in a sauna. And to me, there's a fine difference too between all the different sauna modalities. The reason why we're in traditional sauna is because all the research that's coming out, not just from performance, but also from longevity, is pointing to 176 degrees to 212 degrees. And that's where, again, for us, it's like, this is very simple. Let's just produce saunas that are super hot, high quality craftsmanship, and do so to where like we can start to develop a community around it. And that's all we need to do to be able to start scaling a brand. And so now where we're at is being able to continue to create quality, but also at the same time be able to do it at mass production. And that's the biggest thing for us, is being able to embrace that challenge and forge that Cisu, that Cisu concept that we've been talking about within our own business.
You pointed out we're talking about high heat and we're talking about dry sauna. So we're not talking about steam rooms here. We're not talking about, lower infrared. We're talking about high heat and dry. And I want to point that out now at the beginning of the episodes, because that's really what we're going to be speaking to when we're talking about a lot of these benefits that are associated in the conversation that we're about to have. I do want to help educate our user before we jump into things a little more granularly. What is contrast therapy and where does that come into play in pairing with heat?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to contrast therapy, we're looking at deliberate heat exposure and deliberate cold exposure. So you're basically going from a very hot environment to a very cold environment. For most people right now, it's either they're hitting a hot tub, an infrared sauna, a traditional sauna, a steam room, and then either doing a cold shower or they're doing a cold plunge. And there's different effects to that essentially create a bodily high for people, and it becomes very addicting for some people too. But contrast therapy in its essence is starting to create to me, probably the more significant psychological responses that we're looking for people, and it's actually helping decrease depression. And when you separate the two, though, like cold exposure and sauna therapy in itself, without pairing, there's tons of benefit. But when you combine the two, all of a sudden you're looking at this like cocktail of effects to where it's almost starting to also point toward longevity benefit. There hasn't been enough research done on contrast therapy for us to be able to say like this is the exact specific protocol for longevity, but there is stuff specifically pointing toward depression and being able to cure that. And if there's one thing, obviously, like right now in the United States, is that there's a lot of people that are anxious, have anxiety, have depression, and are looking for ways to be able to cope with it that are healthy, that don't have consequence. And contrast could be a great form for that.
I think it's a really great way to slow down. You know, my history with contrast therapy, I was first introduced to it back in my collegiate athlete days, but that was more so from a physical recovery standpoint. It was, hey, we have a double header tomorrow. We need to recover your muscles as quickly as possible. Go hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, right? There was no discussion about the mental aspects of it.
Right.
Now you'll feel it. Now, anybody out there who has done it, or if you haven't done it, you know, proceed with caution when you're trying anything new. Just do a couple rounds to start. Don't go crazy. You will feel a significant difference in terms of your breathing patterns, in terms of the speed at which you're speaking, the speed at which you're thinking. You know, for me here in New York City, things move very quickly. Once I hit the sauna at 200 degrees and I do a couple of rounds with 38 degrees in the cold plunge and I do that 3-4 times, I am a completely different person. My conversation with you will be night and day comparative to what it was 20-30 minutes prior to that. So there's a lot of great stuff happening here. And I think the fact that it's going mainstream is a tremendous win for everybody.
And to piggyback off that, Northern Europeans have been doing this for hundreds of years.
Yep.
This isn't a trend that's over there. This is just starting to migrate to the United States. And if there's one thing that Americans love to do, it's that they love to sit. And so it's like, why wouldn't I create this complete alternative to where I just sit in a sauna and be able to do so with people to where I can't even use my phone because it's so hot, or the keyboard gets so watery to where like the keyboard doesn't function. So it's a time for me to be able to connect with myself, the person across from me, and do so to where there's zero consequence. And I'm a big believer of creating alternatives in your health that don't have consequence. And it's going to aid in your ability to sleep, aid in your ability to be able to, like you were saying, be able to have great conversation with people and be more productive. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Scandinavian countries have certainly been the leaders in this front. You go to Norway, they have floating saunas that you can take out and rent for a couple of hours. And, you know, you can jump into this. It's like a sauna boat. It's crazy. You jump into the sauna. There's obviously a room where you don't have to be in the sauna as you're floating down the bay or the river. Then you jump into the water as your contrast. How great is that?
Yeah, you can't beat that.
No.
And there are more and more cities that are starting to come out with that. It's here to stay as a result of the research that's starting to come out. But it is important to note that the Scandinavian countries didn't have the research to their disposal while they were doing it. They just intuitively knew that they felt really damn good.
Went by feel.
And sometimes we need to stop leaning on the research so much and just go off of feel. And when, you know, to me, I don't need to know the research to know, like, I've got this incredible response to my sleep. My Oura Ring data also supports it, but just like my wife and I are more connected. I could sleep great. I stay asleep, and my runs are improving just because I'm using sauna. We've
become data reliant for sure.
Yes.
in a lot of ways, whether that's trying to beat our running time, trying to beat the amount of weight that we're lifting, et cetera. Just do what feels good, I think, is what we all kind of need to get back to after the last 10 or 15 years of
Yes.
tech innovation.
Yeah. If there's one thing that, again, the U.S. loves is they love competition, they love data, and it's just part of our culture. And sometimes it is important to get away from that. And sauna could be a great mechanism to be able to do that, to be able to disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. Topic 2, Pete, physiological benefits of sauna. So we're going to get into a bit more detail here. So as you've said, we have loads of data and science that nods to the overwhelming amount of physical benefits that saunas bring. This ranges from decreased risk of chronic and cardiovascular diseases, improved circulation, decreased blood pressure, cholesterol support. The list can truly go on here. So let's start with that heart health. Let's talk about heart health and heat use, including, the potential decrease in mortality rate with higher use. Let's talk a little bit about hearts.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2018, there was a massive study with a number of participants, and it was a pretty evenly split population between male and female, really between like 40 to 55 years old. And what they were really experimenting with and trying to be able to study and point fingers on was cardiovascular risk for any sort of cardiovascular event. And what that research ended up pointing out is that in the controlled environment from 176 degrees to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, to where the top of their head was at that range of 176 to 212, their feet could have been a little bit cooler, totally normal. What they ended up finding out was that cardiovascular disease and any sort of cardiovascular event from 4 to 7 times weekly, from 5 to 20-minute sessions, went down by 40%. And which is incredible, and all-cause mortality, which means that any sort of death related to any sort of health event went down for that exact same amount, so that 40%. 2 to 3 times weekly saw a decrease in 24%. 1 time weekly saw a decrease, but not as much as that 2 to 3 times or that 4 to 7 times. So if you're looking for a minimum effective dose for sauna therapy as it pertains to longevity, to be able to live longer, live better, you're looking 4 to 7 times weekly at that 176 to 212 for 5 to 20 minutes. And you're going to notice that duration is pretty extensive from 5 to 20 minutes. What that tells you is that that person who was being studied is either new to sauna therapy or they've been doing sauna therapy for a long time. And regardless, that the physiological response that was starting to occur and the psychological response that was starting to occur was that they were trying to get each of the participants to be able to get that point in the sauna session where it starts to become uncomfortable, where that dynorphin experience or that dynorphin response starts, which is the opposite of endorphin. So it's like this fight or flight type of mechanism starts to happen in the body, and it's time to get out. Your goal is to be able to stick through that for a couple more minutes and then get out, and then you get that amazing endorphin rush type of experience after the sauna. And that study was so monumental because what that ended up pointing out was that it is truly all about heat. It's not it's not the mechanism. So like this isn't related to red light therapy with infrared sauna, because infrared doesn't get up to that to that temperature range. But we need to be in hot environments and do so consistently. And this is probably one of those times where we could truly say more is better, right? 4 to 7 times weekly has the same amount or the same effect. But when you look at it and you look at it from a 10,000 foot angle, it's no surprise. Finns, in Finland, there's 1 sauna for every 2 people. So most families have 2 saunas. This is literally part of their life, and they do it every single day. And they're also some of the happiest people in the entire world. And it's no coincidence. They're also living really, really long lives. And I think that that's something that the U.S. needs to start to grab a hold of here.
Their sauna use is similar to bathing. I mean, they're doing it either. It's hygiene, right? You brush your teeth, you take a shower, you hit the sauna. I mean, maybe not in that order, but it's a part of their daily routine. It's ingrained in them.
It's where they break bread. They do dinner, they go out in the sauna, and then they position it in a way to where their body's able to naturally cool itself off, and then they get into a nice deep sleep after.
When we're talking about sauna use, so, okay, our goal is 4 to 7 days. Like anything, we're going to work our way up there if we're currently at 0, right?
Yep.
So start with that 1, 2, 3 and work your way up there. Get your body used to it. Don't stress yourself out. You don't need to go from 0 to 7 overnight. Is there a good time? Is there a best or better time to do the sauna at the time of our day?
I would say the biggest thing for people is do it when it's most convenient for you, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to do it most consistently. Right? I'm not going to put it into a part of my schedule to where all of a sudden it becomes a chore for me to sauna. So for my wife and I, what we typically do is we do it prior to bed. And the reason is because we've got 2 kids, and it just makes sense. I can set it from the app on my phone. We jump in the sauna after the kids go down, and then all of a sudden that induces a deeper sleep. Now, there's 2 parts to, or I should say there's 2 avenues that you could approach it if you are truly trying to optimize. So if you were to take like the convenience out of it and look at the research, it's either post-exercise or it's prior to sleep. So for the post-exercise, you get the cardiovascular benefits. So you're talking about heart health. You're getting extra zone 2 training. So zone 2 training is where your body's at, your heart rate's between 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. And more trained athletes that could open up even to larger ranges. But what that does, it gives you an extended period of being able to build aerobic foundation prior or post exercise. But the other thing too is that it's going to allow you to be able to build stroke volume, be able to build aerobic base, but also do so in a way to where you get the extended benefit from your workout. So I could get growth hormone release post-workout with sauna therapy. Again, I could build stroke volume. I could build my body's ability to naturally cool itself off post-workout. So like, you have that, and then you also have on the opposite side sleep. So when you look at your body's ability to be able to thermoregulate, so be able to decrease or elevate body temperature based off the outside environment, if I'm in a sauna and my body temperature is increasing while I'm in the sauna, and then post session without water or cold immersion therapy, my body has to naturally cool itself off. Well, it's the same exact thing that's occurring when I'm triggering my parasympathetic nervous system while I'm trying to sleep or just prior to bed. So my body prior to bed, based off the circadian rhythm, is going to try to decrease my body temp below baseline. Well, what the sauna does, it actually tricks the body to go in deeper below baseline so I could get the bed quicker, triggering a deeper sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system state, and also be able to stay asleep. So based off the data, and not to geek out about the data, but like on my Oura Ring, I was able to get more REM sleep, more deep sleep, and I could stay asleep and also be able to get to sleep quicker as a result of me positioning sauna 1 to 2 hours prior to bed.
And priming yourself to kind of just wind things down for
Yes.
the day. How do we navigate hydration if we're doing it at night, right? So we've just sweat out how much, of
Yes.
our water. How are we replenishing that without breaking our 3-2-1 rule, right? Of drinking water too close to bed. So how are we juggling that?
That is an individualized question. You will know based off of more frequent sauna use prior to bed for how much you could tolerate with hydration. So my biggest recommendation is that you're not just doing water while you're in the sauna, it's water with electrolytes, so something with higher sodium content, because you are perspiring, which means that you're excreting all sorts of like toxins, but also, there's a lot of salt in your sweat, so you need to be able to replenish. For me, what I typically do is I do about a half gallon of water during my sauna session and just post. That would get me within about a half gallon within about an hour time frame, and then I will do my best to use the bathroom prior to bed, and then that should keep me there. As you're starting to experiment with the amount of water, you will probably wake up during the night to go to the bathroom. That's totally normal. You'll figure out based off of more frequent use what works for you.
All right, what that sweet spot is for you individually. You touched on it a bit before, lung and respiratory function, some zone 2. I think this is a really great tool. I use myself as an example. I was coming off of a pretty major surgery back in February, pretty limited because it did impact my abdomen. Couldn't do much, but was hitting the sauna within 2 weeks of that surgery just to get my lung function back to where I want it to be. And I felt it, right? I was, 2.5 weeks off of not doing anything, pretty bedridden for that recovery. And for me to go into that 200-degree sauna for, 15, 20 minutes, it was a workout for my body. So I want to expand a little bit about that. How can we leverage this as active recovery days? How we can splice this in when we're not able to do the cardio we're able to do right now? What does that look like? Is there a cadence to it in terms of duration, temperature, things of that nature? You touched on a little bit more, but let's talk about injecting it more so from a training functional perspective.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the entire perspective for a week, your goal should be around 60 to 80 minutes of deliberate heat exposure between that 176 to 212 degrees. Your body's going to naturally, over time, while you're in the sauna, increase its heart rate. I've seen some people getting even up to like zone 3 and zone 4 in a sauna, depending on how heat adapted they are. But as it pertains to the training and your benefit to be able to improve your running time or being able to improve your recovery, especially from injury, I do believe that based off the science, that if we could get between like the 15 to 20 minute range, ideally like that 20-minute range, around 190, that's typically like where I make home, I'm able to improve my recovery. But again, from like a protocol standpoint, that's just heat. If you combine it with cold, that's a different story too. There was a protocol that was able to increase growth hormone as it pertained to training. And this growth hormone protocol was once every 7 to 10 days. And it was 2 bouts of 30 minutes in the sauna, which is a long time. If you've ever been 30 minutes in a hot sauna, that is mentally daunting, with about a 5 to 6 minute cooling period in between. That could be done with cold water immersion, or just naturally cooling yourself off. And then you would wait 3 to 4 hours, and then you would repeat that same cycle. So 2 rounds of 30 minutes in the sauna between 176 to 212, ideally like in that 190 to 195 range. And then 6 minutes cooling, 3-hour period, and then you repeat. And that produced this incredible like 16-fold growth hormone response. Now, I'm not saying that this is the right thing to do, but that research that came out based off of that was telling you that sauna could be massive for being able to build lean muscle mass, be able to build obviously like cardiovascular function in a way to where you're able to continue to like improve your running, your rowing, whatever your mechanism for aerobic exercise is. But I thought that was really interesting because there's a lot of people that are trying to improve their body composition and their aesthetic, and that could be a good protocol for them to do it. But to me, like I find there to be benefit in doing the 3 to 4 times weekly with my wife for about 20 minutes at a time.
Now, we're not saying you're going to get the biceps you've always wanted just by hitting the sauna every day.
Right.
But, you're talking about the release of the growth hormone, which is extremely beneficial, especially after strength training workouts. Now, on the contrary, if we are introducing contrast therapy, there's a lot of chatter out there in the industry of cold therapy being detrimental to those strength workouts. So how do we navigate that? What are your thoughts on that based off of some of the research that we've seen coming out? How do we want to finally balance our sauna use tied to strength therapy? Is there a window that we want to wait if we want to do the contrast therapy after, which will include the heat and the cold? Talk a little bit about that.
So let's talk quickly cold as a
individual.
Cold with training. Based off of what has come out, we want to try to limit cold therapy 3 to 4 hours after your strength training session. The reason being is that it has tons of anti-inflammatory benefit. If I'm trying to build muscle mass, specifically like post-workout, my body is very inflamed, and my muscle has already been broken down. And if you start to blunt that effect with cold therapy, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to get like the similar lean muscle mass gains that you otherwise would have if you let your body just naturally repair itself. But if you look at it from a just overall longevity standpoint, there's no problem with doing cold therapy post exercise. If you're looking for 100% body composition, building as much muscle mass as possible, then keep that 3 to 4 hours after. But when you start to structure in contrast therapy with sauna and ice, it's still about the same idea, right? The sauna inflames the body, and then the ice is an anti-inflammatory benefit to the body. So those obviously counteract each other. It's vasodilation and then vasoconstriction. So with sauna therapy, yes, it's great post exercise. It's able to continue to expedite the recovery process. The inflammatory process even speeds up even more because you want that post exercise. But if you're going to do contrast therapy and then right after a training session, I probably wouldn't recommend that. If you're looking for full on muscle mass gain, I would probably keep that 3 to 4 hours after your strength training session.
Right.
But if it's aerobic training, it's a different story. You could do contrast after with great benefit.
Right. For me, my favorite time to hop into the cold plunge is after a longer run. I mean, my feet are on fire, my calves are on fire. Everything is just super inflamed from that New York City street impact. Yeah. So dunking myself into that cold plunge for even 4, 5, 6 minutes feels really nice after that. And then I'll always end in heat, and I don't like to walk around in cold as well. I think inflammation is seen as such a negative, but I think we kind of need to take hold of that narrative before it gets too out of control. Probably already has, because I feel like on every website, it's like, get rid of inflammation. There's a time and a place for inflammation.
It's
right?
important.
It's important. It's going to help your muscles grow. It's going to help you progress. And sometimes we need to be in an inflamed state in order to work out what our body needs to work out. Now, we don't want to be inflamed 24/7. That's right. Really more so what we're trying to get out of, especially if you're dealing with maybe autoimmune issues, things of that nature. That's really what we need to get under control through stress management and some of these modalities that we're talking about today. But yeah, to your point, the percentage of people likely listening to this, even who are so fixated on, the smallest percentage of getting that hypertrophy versus them probably just wanting to feel better and function better on a daily basis. I think the benefits of just jumping in, if that's more convenient for you after your workout, far outweigh, what some of these studies are telling us.
You're exactly right. And inflammation into itself, the body gets inflamed because it's trying to heal itself. That's why inflammation occurs. Now, some people are chronically inflamed, which is a problem, but cold obviously helps de-inflame or is, again, anti-inflammatory for the body. And I think that as long as we don't geek out too much about the science and just be more intuitive toward how we feel, like you were saying, sometimes we just need to do what feels best. And that's typically what's going to let us be more consistent long-term, is being intuitive to, hey, this actually felt really good. I'm going to continue to double down on this because I enjoyed how I felt. And there's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes you need to lean away from the data on that and just be intuitive.
Yep. How does sauna use help with heat adaptation, really homeostasis control, and learning temperature regulation for the time outside of the sauna? Again, you touched on this and your body adjusting to getting us back to that regular functioning state. How can we use this maybe in the summer, particularly to help us deal with increasingly hot summers? Maybe you live in a permanently year-round hot place like Arizona, right? So how can that help your body adapt to everyday life when you're not in the sauna?
Yeah, certainly. So our body, again, everybody's internal body temperature has a slight fluctuation from day to day based off of number of physiological principles, the external environments and whatnot. Sauna obviously increases internal body temperature. The skin gets hot. Naturally, the body's going to start trying to cool itself down from the inside. That's why we start to sweat. So sweat is essentially our ability to be able to thermoregulate and keep body temp down. When I step outside of the sauna, yes, my internal body temp is high because I'm trying to sweat and to bring it down. But the more frequent our sauna use is, the better we become at sweating. And some people don't want to sweat more, but what that means is actually we're more metabolically efficient. So I'm able to decrease body temperature more rapidly. I'm able to keep a lower heart rate as a result. So let's say it's mid-July, mid-August, I'm going for that long summer run midday and it's 90 degrees out with tons of humidity. I'm more better set up to be able to keep my heart rate down because I'm able to be more heat adapted as a result of frequent sauna use. And that's really important. Nobody wants to hit that 10-mile run and then 6-7 miles in, you hit the wall because you weren't heat adapted. And being able to do that in preparation for the summer is obviously advantageous for people, but being able to let the body naturally cool itself down post sauna session without cold is a great way for the body to be able to obviously adapt to what the sauna is doing, and then you could apply that for your summer workouts. But similar to the better trained aerobic athletes out there, a great measure for aerobic fitness is how quickly your body could go from a zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 state back to homeostasis or baseline. It's the same thing. Like, how quickly can your body get back to baseline and baseline body temp post sauna session? That's a really good indicator for aerobic fitness as well as heat adaptation.
I'm glad you touched on the sweating component because I feel like, it's a bodily function and it's fairly normal. And I think, if we look back at maybe our athletic days, it was always, you were looking at the sweaty kid and you're like, what's going on with this guy? Well, he's actually pretty adapted, right? In comparison to maybe some of the others who take, 20, 30 minutes to kind of get to that point. I want to talk about sweating and skin health, the detox effect. I'll tiptoe around that word. Leveraging after, especially things like massage and acupuncture and things of that nature. For me, whenever I get my acupuncture session, I'm immediately hitting the sauna within 60 minutes after that, just to help my body process, to get some of those toxins that were released, some of the great work that we did in there. And if you haven't checked out that episode, please go back and listen more. So let's talk about skin health and the benefits that come with heat use.
Yeah, so this is where I want to bring infrared into the play too. So there is a lot of benefit to infrared sauna and traditional sauna in the setting. Obviously, yes, the standard should be 176 to 212, but there is more research starting to come out now on infrared sauna as it pertains to skin health because naturally it's going to increase your body temperature, so it's going to increase circulation, you're going to sweat. So the whole point here is to sweat. This could be through exercise. Yes, there's a lot of byproduct to our cellular waste when I'm trying to excrete different types of toxins through my sweat with exercise, but the same thing holds true for traditional sauna as well as infrared sauna. So yes, there's great skin effect because you're in that inflammatory state while you're in the sauna. The temperature is high, you're starting to sweat, pores open. Yes, it's great to be able to release those toxins, but I've noticed, and this is kind of fun. Like one of my good friends is Jelly Roll. He sent me a message the other day, and he was telling me how one of his, while he was in the Sisu Sauna, he had this pimple on his face, and he said like the size of it went down as a result of him sauning more and more, and it was there for a long time. And he said it's like nearly gone now as a result of sauna therapy. And I was like, man, nobody's ever talking about that with skin health, but you'll notice that some people, like when they're doing sauna therapy frequently enough, they look like they're glowing, and that's not a coincidence. You'll notice like to me, like when my wife had both of our kids, there was like sometimes like during her pregnancy that she was like genuinely glowing, and like that's like the same look you'll see when somebody's sauning 4 to 7 times a week. So I think that from a like vibrancy and like an aesthetic, yes, 100% do sauna therapy, whether that's infrared or traditional, do it. But it's one of those things where you have to give yourself the eye test when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and say like, hey, this is actually benefiting me or is it not? But sauna is pointing toward that because of the excretion of all the toxins through our sweat and the perspiration. Yeah, 100%. There's great benefit to skin health.
And when we say detox, obviously it gets a bad rap, but when we're saying it in this context, we're talking about, helping organs like your liver and your pancreas and couple of these key functioning organs secrete the waste that maybe they need a little more help secreting, right? So it's kind of expediting those processes, moving digestion along. That's a huge one for me. I'll notice I'll lie down in the sauna. I'm like 12 minutes in at 200 degrees. I hear my stomach, the digestive function is moving. One, it's because I'm relaxed and I'm kind of getting into that relaxed state, but then just the heat, and there's Chinese medicine that goes back thousands and thousands of years of the heat application and how we want to maintain a warmer, body temperature throughout the day, which we will talk through in a second about what's ideal to end in hot, cold. It's probably depends like everything. But let's talk a little bit deeper. What's happening under the hood when we say detoxing in a sauna and sweating? What are we helping internally? What are some of those functions that we're helping?
Yeah, so we consume so many different products, whether that's like how we inhale things, how we consume things through food, through our water, things that we come in touch with. And there's a lot of heavy metals within our body, like lead, mercury, and whatnot, arsenic. And through sweating, we're able to get that out of the system, specifically with sauna. And yes, you could get that with actual exercise, but when you talk about exercise and how you're like loading the joints and whatnot, it's you don't have as much of an exercise waste byproduct when you do it with the sauna. So when you're looking at underneath the hood and like the GI tract, you point it in the exact right direction. Yes, it helps with being able to digest your food, similar to like how if you were to, consume your dinner with your family and go for a walk after, like there's great benefit and more research coming out on that, that we just need to continue to be active because it's going to help us break down the food, become more metabolically active. The other thing too is it also helps convert some white fat cells to beige and brown fat cells, which are more metabolically active cells because like the mitochondria is more dense. And sauna therapy, walking, just low impact, low aerobic zone 1, zone 2 post meal is great. And from a look underneath the hood, it's kind of like a why wouldn't I, as opposed to drinking a beer post or grabbing dessert post. It's kind of one of those like non-consequential type of modalities that you can start to implement post food. Yeah,
help those processes carry out. I think a lot of us just eat dinner and then we sit on the couch. Maybe we're sitting on the couch as we're eating dinner, and then that's it. We go horizontal, right? The more you can help your body likes to move. Your blood likes to circulate. Your organs like you to be walking around. So if you're not walking after dinner, maybe you're hitting the sauna now. The last point here from a physical perspective, Pete, was what I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Where do we want to end when we're doing contrast training? So there's a lot of different, there's a lot of mixed opinions about this. For me personally, based off of how I feel, I don't like to end in cold. I feel that one, it depends on where I am in my cycle, in my menstruating, in my ovulating, especially during those times of my month. I really try not to end in cold because I do find that it is disruptive to those processes. So ladies, that's something to definitely take in count. And I think we need more research that pinpoints this. But then two, for me, I have a history of just a bit slower digestion. So for me, I like to end in that searing hot. I feel everything moving and it just sets me off in a really great way. That's not to say that I didn't pair my sauna with 2-3 rounds of cold cold plunge, but I'll always end in that hot. Is this more an individualized approach based off of feel again, Pete, or is there more of a science in terms of what goal we're chasing after with the use of contrast?
So to preface, like what we were talking about earlier, contrast therapy does not have a ton of research yet. Yes, there's individual research on just sauna and just cold plunge, and there is some research on the contrast therapy, but what we're kind of looking at right now is like the anecdotal evidence or the smaller research that's suggesting different effects. But if you're talking about sauna and cold and what to be able to end on, it all depends on your schedule for your day. You can end on cold with great benefit earlier in the day. However, going back to why sauna is so important to sleep, we want to end on sauna prior to bed because your body is going to naturally cool itself off back to below baseline to be able to trigger a deeper, quicker time to go to bed. If I were to end on cold prior to bed, say 1 to 2 hours before, now all of a sudden my body's naturally below baseline. Now it's going to compensate even more past baseline, and now I'm more awake because the skin, right, is obviously colder. So now my body temperature inside is trying to heat up to be able to compensate for what's happening to the skin temperature. So if you're looking at from a timing perspective, I would highly recommend that you go towards sauna to finish prior to bed. If you're looking at it earlier in the day, say morning or afternoon, there's no reason why you shouldn't finish on cold. Your body, when you finish on cold, is going to naturally start to warm itself up back to baseline. And similar to like how sauna is, the more that you can let your body naturally get itself back to baseline itself without introducing sauna or cold plunge to be able to get it back to baseline, the better. So yes, cold immersion is great to finish off with. Just do it earlier in the day. If it's at night, finish with sauna.
Great stuff. Let's move on to topic 3. So psychological benefits of sauna. So in tandem with a lot of the great physical benefits come a plethora of mental and emotional benefits and social as well tied into that, which you touched on, which I want to dive into deeper. What are some of the most beneficial mental gains that we can see from sauna use?
So sauna is an environment to where it's so hot that you can't use your phone. Whether that's by yourself or with somebody else, you're psychologically triggering yourself as you step through the door that this is my time to zen out. And most people don't have that time ever. Specifically like here in New York City, I'm sure that people are always go, go, go. And for you to be able to have that psychological space that is your time for 15, 20 minutes, if you're doing multiple rounds of hot and cold, then even better. But that space for people, because you step through that door and you have like that psychological release, it is decreasing bouts of depression. And there was a recent study last week that actually came out on that same effect with infrared sauna, which was great because there hasn't been enough research on infrared sauna to say like how beneficial it actually is. But I think that it is a byproduct of people just having that time to be able to just decompress. But from the psychological perspective outside of depression, you look at anxiety. Well, there's a lot of people right now that are dealing with anxiety and are on medication. Now, this isn't medical advice by any means, but having more frequent sauna use in that environment that is very, very difficultly hot between that 176 to 212, and you get that dynorphin response where it's like fight or flight, time to get out, it's challenging. And you get that euphoria post-session when you get past that 2 to 3 minutes or even 4 or 5 minutes of, man, this really sucks. I really want to get out, but you're fighting yourself from wanting to get out. You start to develop some confidence there. And there's a lot of people that are lacking confidence right now in their body image, how they carry themselves, their interpersonal relationships. And I've noticed that because we're in this sauna with 2 to 3 to 4, sometimes like 8 different people who we've never met each other, and there's no phones, what else are you going to do than talk with people and develop interpersonal relationships and have great conversation, make fun of each other and the whole gambit? And then you step out and then you get that feeling of, wow, like I went through something very difficult and I'm better for it. So you get the massive cognitive boost, you get the confidence, you also get the decreases in depression and anxiety. So from a psychological perspective, 100% sauna is great and is definitely being attributed to that on all the different modalities of sauna right now.
I also think it's a more approachable way, and we touched on this in our last episode with Alex Silver-Fagan. How do we have some of the more vulnerable and open conversations with people that maybe is a little less approachable over a cup of coffee, right? And it's usually, well, let's go to a yoga class, and on the way home on the sidewalk, maybe that's where that conversation is going to happen. Maybe it's on a family walk. I know my best conversations with some of my family members older are when we're on walks in nature, right? But similar to the sauna, to your point, where I go to sauna, there are people that I don't know, and at a time there's 6 of us in there. Conversation breaks out 10 out of 10 times, and 20 minutes goes by. 1 helps the time go by a hell of a lot faster. And then 2, like you said, that morale boost, you feel good. And I think that's an overlooked benefit of community-based fitness is just the morale and just the comfort that you get out of that. And think about how much better you feel sometimes. Sometimes you need to go kind of demon chasing on an individual workout. Yes. But think of the difference of how you can feel maybe where you didn't feel like you kind of had your best one-on-one workout, and then maybe you went to a group class, or maybe you went into the sauna with a couple of people, and just internalize that, recognize that, and see how you feel after, and then just start doing more of what feels good. How can we combine breath work and sauna use? Breath work is huge right now. We've seen a massive increase in the market of people kind of chasing after breath work. I'm sure, no doubt, that's coming with the rise of anxiety and depression and where we are as a society right now. Do you have any tips for leveraging breath work in the sauna?
Yeah, so I would even say it starts prior to the sauna session. So if I could get into the sauna or prior to the sauna, decrease my heart rate by doing some box breathing. So say 4-second inhale, 4-second retention at the top, 4-second exhale, 4-second retention at the bottom, and be able to decrease my body or my heart rate, and then step into the sauna, I'm already starting to trigger that parasympathetic nervous system response. And that's what we want. Now, like you mentioned, you could chase some demons in the sauna if you want, depending on where the heat is. For most people, like 190 to 200 degrees is going to be too hot for you to start to really engage in that more relaxed state for breathing. So if you're looking at like good breath work in a sauna, I definitely would recommend on the lower end of that 176 to 212. So between like 176 to 185, to where your nostrils aren't necessarily burning. If you've ever been in a sauna and your nostrils start to burn, that's pretty common, totally normal. But as you get into the sauna, it's all about posture and doing your best to like relax your shoulders, and then also focus on belly breathing. So the more I could breathe through my belly, less through the chest. Typically, again, I'm able to lower my heart rate there, which is kind of like it's a fun workout into itself of trying to keep your body or your heart rate down in the sauna, because yes, body heat's going up. Your body's essentially inducing a fever in a sauna, so heart rate starts to jack up. So breathing actually keeps it more steady. And again, if you're ideally able to start that breath work prior, so let's say 2 minutes of box breathing for 4s on the inhales, retentions, and exhales, step into your sauna session, do 15 to 20 minutes, and then do the same thing after, you're going to be able to come down in your body temp quicker as a result. But it's all about like kind of triggering that parasympathetic nervous system in a way to where it just completely relaxes you. That's the whole point of breath work, is to get into that completely relaxed state to where you're able to completely keep everything else that's going on in the world behind, and for you to just become completely into the present. And if you've ever done it with a group of people in a sauna, it's really crazy, because everybody starts to connect with each other without even talking. You're just focused on your breath. And so when you take a step back on the breath work, tons of benefit to that with sauna. When you add it with cold exposure, same thing. I highly recommend doing box breathing in your cold plunge. If you've never done a cold plunge, have fun with that for your first couple sessions. You probably won't be able to do it because it's that hard, but you could start getting cold immersion benefits starting at 60 degrees Fahrenheit and lower. So I would highly recommend that you get into cold exposure at the higher temperatures of like the 50s and or 60 to 45 degrees, and get yourself immersed with that, and then start to integrate that box breathing.
Yeah, like anything, right? I think the more you can practice it without being in those harder situations, the more successful you'll be when you're ready to implement it into those situations. The biggest piece of advice I think that you would probably agree on for anybody looking to tackle their very first cold plunge is just breathe. Long inhale, long exhale. Immediately the body wants to get out. It wants to protect itself. It thinks that you're in danger. Happened to me when I was doing a half Ironman in Indian Wells. Water was 52 degrees. I was in a full wetsuit. It was the day I learned about neoprene caps, though. So people around me had these neoprene caps on. I just had my single hat, and I dunked my face in to do my first couple of strokes. And I immediately, my body wanted to get out. Like, I was zoned in, ready for that race, knew I had to do to prepare for that race. But it's so crazy how quickly our body can just take control and immediately say, no, get the heck out. We are dying, right? So, when you're doing your first cold plunge, just breathe through it. Don't try to be a hero by going too much. And same thing for sauna. I don't think you need to push the limits and try to be a hero on your first go. Just kind of work your way up there, see what you're comfortable with. And then when you get to the point of understanding some of those cues with your body and saying, oh, no, I can go another 45 seconds. I can go another minute, right? So just take it small. Pete, I want to leave today with one final question, and I just want you to give our users a piece of advice when they are looking to implement heat use for the first time, right? So again, how do we start small and conservatively, but start injecting it in a way that can be useful to our long-term health?
So when it comes to long-term health, it's all about sustainability and consistency. We don't need to go into saunas at 200 plus degrees. We don't need to get, especially up to that 212. Most people get tons of benefit starting at 176 degrees. So do your best to find a traditional sauna and get in for at least 5 minutes. Do it 4 times a week, and you're going to start to see tons and tons of benefit, not just from the psychological aspect like we talked about, and the recovery, the growth hormone, the whole thing, but you'll start to notice that your productivity improves. Your ability to be able to be more focused at work improves. Your sleep improves. It's the whole gambit. I think people just need to get started and stay consistent. And in the US, there's a massive lack of consistency. We just need to do the simple things really well and do them time and time again and do it consistently. And sauna is part of that equation for most people if they're trying to get more out of life.
Pete, thanks so much for stopping by today. We're excited to see where Cisu goes. Tell the audience how they can follow along on the rest of your journey.
Certainly. So you can find us at SISULifestyle.com. That's SISU lifestyle.com, or at Sisu_sauna on Instagram. You can follow me personally at Peter Nelson II on Instagram as well to be able to see some more of the behind the scenes stuff with us building the brand and training.
Appreciate you stopping by the studio today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode here at Bodybuilding.com. Stay tuned for more stories along the way.